I shouldn't have come to this wedding. That's what I kept telling myself while I stood at the reception. The reception was on Crystal Pier in Pacific Beach, San Diego. The wind off Mission Bay was cold for September. I was wearing the emerald dress I'd tried on with Marcus at Nordstrom in Pasadena last spring. I didn't change it because I couldn't afford a new one. My credit card was still bleeding from August. Crystal, the bride, looked happy in a way that hurt to watch. She'd been my friend since high school. Her bridesmaid kept talking to me about a guy named Trent who I couldn't remember at all. I just nodded and sipped my second glass of Corbel. Anyone who grew up in Pasadena could tell it wasn't real champagne. Crystal's family always picked the cheaper bottle and called it a treat. My phone buzzed. It was Mom, asking if I'd taken pictures with my +1. I hadn't told my parents that Marcus and I broke up 4 months ago. Every time I planned to tell them, I found another reason not to. They were both engineers, the steady kind. Marcus was a good lawyer with a good smile. They had loved him. I told myself I'd leave by 10 and go back to my hotel. I went out to the patio because the room was too warm. The deck looked over the water. I leaned on the railing, and the metal was so cold it bit my palms. The wind smelled like salt and sweet alcohol from someone's spilled drink. The zipper of my dress made a small whisper sound when I sat down on a patio chair, the kind only you can hear. Someone came out behind me. I didn't turn around right away. He didn't act like he was following me. He just walked to the rail 2 steps away and breathed out like he had been holding it in for an hour. "You okay?" he said. "You looked like you were about to faint in there." "I'm fine," I said. "Just needed air." He held up a glass of water. "Take it anyway." When I reached for the glass, his elbow brushed mine. 2 seconds, maybe less. Neither of us said anything about it. He gave me the water, and I drank half of it standing there. We didn't trade names. He said he was on the groom's side. He worked in consulting and lived in Seattle. I told him I was a freelance motion graphics designer in LA. He said, "What does that mean exactly?" So I explained it. He listened the way some people don't, like he was actually waiting for me to finish a thought. We talked for 40 minutes. I noticed something while we talked. I wasn't bringing up Marcus. I wasn't bringing up the credit cards or how my parents kept asking when I'd go corporate. I wasn't bringing up any of the soft, broken pieces of me. I was just talking, like a person, to another person. He didn't know which version of me was the broken one. With him, I didn't have to pick. It felt like air. He didn't ask if I was seeing anyone. I didn't ask either. By 11, the music inside had slowed down. He looked toward the water. "Want to walk on the pier? I haven't seen it from out there yet." We walked. The boards under my heels clicked too loud. He asked which hotel I was at, and I told him. He said his was 2 blocks down on Mission Boulevard. He didn't ask anything else. He didn't push. I'm not sure what made me say it. Maybe the Corbel, maybe 4 months of being so careful I forgot what I sounded like. Maybe the way he hadn't asked anything I owed him an answer to. "Do you want to come up to my room?" He looked at me for a second, like he was checking I'd really said it. Then he nodded. We took a cab back to my hotel. We didn't say much in the cab. The driver was listening to a Padres game on the radio. My fingers shook a little when I pulled the room key from my purse, so I kept them low so he couldn't see. The card reader took 2 tries. He stood behind me, not touching me, and waited. I didn't turn around to look at him before the door opened. I didn't know his full name. I didn't ask. I woke up at 6:47 a.m. to the soft click of a door closing. For a second, I thought I dreamed it. Then I rolled over, and the bed beside me was empty. The sheets on his side were already cool. There was no note on the nightstand. There were 2 empty water glasses on the dresser, and that was all he left behind. I lay there with my eyes open for 4 minutes. I know it was 4 because I watched the clock change from 6:47 to 6:51. I waited for something to come up. Anger, sadness, anything. Nothing did. The strangest thing was how unstrange it felt. Checkout was at 11. I stayed in the shower a long time. I drove back to LA on Interstate 5, somewhere near Carlsbad. I pulled into a 7-Eleven and bought a coffee that tasted like burnt water and a breakfast burrito wrapped in foil. I ate in the parking lot with the AC on. The whole drive I tried to remember his name. He'd said Wesley once, near the rail. I wasn't sure if it was his real name or short for something else. Echo Park looked the same when I got home, the way it always does. My building is a 4-unit walk-up off Sunset, built in 1928 with a yellow porch light. Nobody changes when it burns out. My studio is 380 square feet for $1,890 a month. The dress went straight in the hamper. It still smelled like the patio, salt and cold metal and sweet wine. I showered for 22 minutes. I worked the rest of the day on a project for a wellness startup in Venice. They wanted soft pink animations for a meditation app, the kind of work I used to like and now do on autopilot. I sent the file at 11. I went to bed. I told myself it was one night, nothing more, nothing less. Every 24-year-old woman in a big city has a night like this. That's what they do, and that's what I'd done. The end. 6 months before Marcus and I broke up, he said something to me at dinner. We were eating tacos at a place on Sunset where he always ordered the same plate. He said, "You're never going to be the kind of woman who does something crazy. That's what I love about you." I'd taken it as a compliment then. I tucked it away like a love note. Now, sitting in my studio at 1 in the morning, the line played back differently. It sounded less like a love note and more like a verdict. The first week, I was fine. The second week is when it started getting weird. I checked Instagram for him on a Tuesday morning. I only had Wesley. I scrolled through the bride's tagged photos from the wedding, but the patio and the late guests weren't in any of them. I went to the wedding's Facebook event and skimmed the guest list. No Wesley showed up. I texted Crystal, "Hey, was there a guy named Wesley on Daniel's side?" Random question. She wrote back 20 minutes later, "Maybe Wes Hallowell? Groom's friend out of Seattle?" Why? Just trying to remember. Long story. I typed Wes Hallowell into LinkedIn. 14 people had that name. None of the photos matched the man I remembered. I locked my phone and put it face down on the kitchen counter, like that would change anything. By week 3, I was doing a thing I didn't notice at first. Late at night, scrolling TikTok in bed, my left hand kept moving. I'd find my fingers brushing the inside of my own right elbow, slow, light, the same way he had. I didn't catch myself the first 3 or 4 times. When I finally did, I sat up in bed and stared at the wall. I typed Wes Hallowell into LinkedIn again. Afterward, I opened a new email window. I wrote it to my own address with the subject question. I asked myself, Am I looking for him because of him? Or because I can't stand being walked away from with no words? You loved Marcus for 3 years, and you don't miss him. You miss a guy you knew for 3 hours. What's actually broken here? I didn't send it. I saved it as a draft. I'd open it many times in the months after. Babe, you good? You haven't called me in like 6 weeks. Aaliyah was watching me over her flat white. We were at one of those small cafes on York Boulevard in Highland Park, the kind with mismatched chairs and one wall painted dark green. She'd ordered me an oat milk latte without asking, because she knows. Just busy with a project, I said. You said that last month. I looked at the wood grain of the table because I couldn't look at her. Aaliyah had been my friend since we were both interns at a design agency in Culver City. She doesn't push, but she remembers everything. That's why she scared me a little. I'm okay, I said. I promise. She didn't say anything, which from Aaliyah is worse than her saying something. When I got back to the studio, I opened the question email. I scrolled to the end and added a list. I've turned down 3 projects this month. I've canceled brunch with Mom twice. I haven't paid my credit card minimum. I've looked at 47 LinkedIn profiles for men named Wesley or Wes. I haven't answered 4 of Aaliyah's texts. This isn't about a man. This is about me becoming a woman I don't recognize. I closed the laptop and sat with my hands flat on the desk for a long time. Something came back to me then, something from that night I hadn't held still long enough to look at. We'd been at the door of my hotel room. The key wasn't reading on the first try. He was standing behind me, not touching me, and right before the click of the door, he'd said something low, almost under his breath. You sure? I'd nodded. I had been so busy being shocked at myself for inviting him up that I'd forgotten the question. 3 months later, in Echo Park at 1 a.m, the question landed. He had asked. Marcus had never asked. 3 years, and Marcus had never asked me about anything important, not really, not in actual words. He'd assumed. He'd planned. He'd told me what we were doing on Saturdays. I'd never asked myself either. Not really. I'd just shown up where I was supposed to and called it being grown. A man I didn't know had asked. I'd nodded. I sat there and felt something go quiet inside me that had been loud for 3 months. It wasn't him I couldn't let go of. It was the moment a person had treated me like someone with a choice. That moment was so new in my life, I thought it belonged to him. It didn't belong to him. It belonged to me. I'd just never had it before. On Thursday afternoon, I went to the Trader Joe's on Hyperion in Silver Lake. The fluorescent lights make everything look weird. All the yogurt cups in shades of green that aren't really yogurt colors. I was reaching for a Greek vanilla when a man came around the corner pushing a basket. His shoulder almost brushed mine. His elbow was right next to my elbow. I almost touched him. On purpose. I stopped my hand an inch away. I put the yogurt back. I left the basket in the aisle and walked to my car. I sat in the driver's seat with my keys in my lap and cried for 11 minutes. It was the first time I'd cried since the morning I drove home from San Diego. I called my mom from the parking lot. I didn't tell her about Wesley. I didn't tell her about the yogurt aisle, the credit card, any of it. Mom, I'm not okay. My mom has never been good at emotional phone calls. She's an engineer. She fixes things by writing them down. There was a long pause. Then she said, "Can you come up to Pasadena this weekend?" "Yeah," I said. "I can come up." I drove to my parents' house Saturday afternoon. Mom made jollof rice, the kind my Auntie Bisi taught her when I was a kid, with cumin and paprika and that smoky taste from the gas stove. My dad didn't ask too many questions. He never does. He just turned on the Lakers game and made room for me on the couch. We watched LeBron miss a free throw, and Dad shook his head and said, "He's tired, baby. Watch his shoulders." I told them about Marcus. I told them we'd broken up 4 months ago, that I hadn't said anything because I didn't want to hear them be careful with me. Mom set down her plate. "Imani? I know. Imani, baby. I know." She didn't say anything else. That was enough. I slept in my old room. The Solange seat at the table poster I'd put up at 17 was still on the wall, a little curled at the top corner. I lay in bed and stared at it. That girl, the one who'd put that poster up, had known what she wanted. She wanted to design things that made people feel something. She wanted to live somewhere with crooked sidewalks and good food. She wanted to be free. I'd lost her years before Marcus. Marcus hadn't taken her. I'd been giving her away in pieces since college, in tiny, polite trades, until there wasn't much of her left. Wesley hadn't been a man I needed to find. He'd been a stranger who, by accident, had reminded me that the 17-year-old version of me had ever existed at all. I drove home Sunday night. I didn't open the email draft. The Monday after Pasadena, I deleted Instagram off my phone. Not deactivated, deleted. I'd done the take a break version before, and a break always ended with me reinstalling at midnight to look at one more page. This time I went into settings, hit the red text, typed my password, and watched the icon disappear. I went into my photos and deleted the album of me and Marcus. 3 years. 412 photos. I didn't sit with each one. I just dragged the album to the trash and emptied it. I uninstalled the dating app I downloaded the week before but never opened. I didn't search Wesley Hallowell on LinkedIn or anywhere else. I worked. A friend of Aaliyah's referred me to a startup in Culver City. They were a mental health platform for first-generation kids of immigrants, and they wanted a full brand identity. The contract was $11,000 over 6 weeks. I said yes the same day. I started keeping real hours, the kind I'd let slide for months. Up at 7, breakfast, work by 8:30, lunch break at 1, done by 6. I started yoga at the Echo Park Rec Center, the one off Glendale Boulevard. $8 a class. I went 3 times a week, even on the bad mornings. The teacher was a guy named Hector, who said find your breath too often, but the floor was old and warm, and I didn't have to think. Mondays, I had dinner with Aaliyah, always somewhere we could split a check without doing math. She didn't ask about the 6 weeks of silence. I didn't bring it up. Some friendships heal that way, with neither of you naming what happened. I read the question email one last time. I didn't edit it. I just read it from top to bottom. Then I deleted it. There was a strange feeling about stopping. It wasn't release. It wasn't peace. It felt more like a door closing that didn't have a lock on it. I could open it again any morning. I didn't. Every morning, I chose not to. The choice was the real thing, not the forgetting. 6 months out from the wedding, my phone rang on a Friday night. I was making instant ramen because I was too tired to cook, and I'd let the water boil over. The pot was hissing on the burner, and I was waving a dish towel when the phone rang. The screen said an unknown number, area code 206. Seattle. I let it ring 3 times before I picked up. Imani Brooks? A man's voice. Careful. Yes, this is Wesley. Wesley Hallowell. I've been trying to find you for 6 months. Do you have 5 minutes? I didn't say anything. I could hear my noodles burning to the bottom of the pot. I didn't have your number, he said. I only knew you did freelance design in LA. I went through I don't know how many portfolios on Behance and Nah, looking for Black women designers who fit the timing. I found yours last week. I waited a week to call because I couldn't figure out what to say. I still didn't speak. Look, if you want me to never call again, I won't. But I needed you to know I was trying. That's all. I lowered the heat under the pot. I sat down on the floor against the cabinet. Why didn't you reach out before now? He took a breath. My dad was in hospice that night. I left at 5 in the morning to make a 7 a.m. flight back to Seattle. He died the next afternoon. I went back to San Diego 6 weeks later for a different funeral on the other side of the family, and I tried to ask Crystal if she remembered who'd introduced us. She didn't. I had your face and the words freelance designer in LA. That's all I had. I'm not telling you to make excuses. I'm telling you because you asked. I closed my eyes. I have to think, I said. That's fair. Can I call you back? Yeah? This number is mine. We hung up. I stayed on the kitchen floor with the pot still hissing behind me. I thought about the woman I'd been 6 months ago, the one who'd typed his name into LinkedIn at 1 in the morning. She'd wanted this call so badly she'd have crawled to it. The woman I was now, 6 months in, didn't know if she wanted it. That was the problem. 2 weeks later, I met Wesley at a cafe in Highland Park. I told him I needed 2 weeks. He didn't push. I picked the cafe on a corner of Figueroa, the kind of third-wave place where the espresso comes, with a little glass of soda water you don't need. I sat at a small table by the window. There were 2 cups in front of me, an espresso for him, an oat milk latte for me. I'd ordered first because I'd gotten there first. He walked in 5 minutes early. The strange thing about seeing him in daylight was how much smaller he looked. He wasn't smaller. He was just real, in a way that nighttime and wedding lights couldn't show me. There was a thin scar above his left temple, near his hairline. I hadn't seen it that night. I wondered if he'd had it then, or if the lights had hidden it. He sat down. He didn't reach for the espresso. I don't want to start where we left off, I said. He waited. I don't want to go back to that night. I lived with the shadow of that night for 6 months. I don't want to date a shadow. If we do anything, I want us to be strangers, new, from here. Okay, and you have to know this. If you turn out not to be real enough for what I need, I'll leave. I'm not afraid of leaving anymore. That's not a threat. That's just where I am. He nodded slowly. He looked at the espresso, then back at me. I'm not the same man either, he said. I should tell you that part. I waited. I'm not here because of that night. Not really. After my dad got sick, before he died, he asked me one night if there was anyone in my life. I didn't have anyone. I hadn't had anyone for a long time. The only face I could think of was yours. I didn't tell him about you because there was nothing to tell, but you are who I thought of. That's when I started looking. You don't owe me a thing for that. I just wanted you to know that you helped a man in his last week, and you weren't even there. I didn't cry. I had thought I might. Thank you for telling me, I said. We were quiet for 30 seconds, maybe longer. The espresso machine hissed at the counter. A bus went by outside. He reached across the table, slow enough that I could have moved. He laid his fingers on my wrist, not my elbow. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't a brush. He left them there. I didn't pull away. I drove back to Echo Park around 6. The sky was doing that thing it does in March, the orange-pink light that only seems to land in this part of LA, on these particular hills, this exact way. People have written songs about it. They haven't gotten it right. I made tea. I opened my laptop. I went into the drafts folder of my email, and I found question still there. I didn't delete it. I clicked edit. I changed the subject to answer. In the body, I wrote, I'm not the woman who was looking for him. I'm not the woman who was waiting for him. I'm the woman choosing the second time. This time I know who I'm choosing and why. I saved the draft. I closed the laptop. I stood at my window and looked down at the air shaft between my building and the next one. There's a bird's nest in the corner of the gutter that's been there since I moved in. I thought about the 17-year-old girl in my parents' house in Pasadena, the one with the Solange poster. I didn't feel like I'd gone back to her. She wasn't who I needed to be anymore. I felt like a third version of me, a new one who'd lived through enough now to know when to say yes and when to say no. That was the version that could love somebody back without losing herself doing it. He touched me first, but this time, I'm the one deciding what that touch means.
That email subject change. Question to answer. No speech, just that. I've been thinking about the moment she stopped searching LinkedIn at 1 in the morning. Not because she found him, because she found something else first. Honestly, the 17-year-old with the Solange poster got me. We all had that version of ourselves. Some of us traded her away slowly without noticing. When did you last feel like that younger version of you? Share with me in the comment section, and thank you so much for watching.